working on insulin resistance, we're working on sleep, yeah, or if their levels are low, or maybe it's we raise it from 30 up to 80 and they feel horrible. 7 HRT myths that people still believe. Hi, I'm Dr. Valorie Davidson from the Progress Your Health podcast.
And I'm Dr. Maki from the Progress Your Health podcast. So we've been doing this for over 20 years. The evolution or the progression of HRT and the awareness is incredible, right? Because when we started doing this, everyone was sort of still in that mindset of anti-hormone, but women were sort of desperate.
Oh yeah, no, women were neglected. There's a whole generation of women that were neglected with HRT. In fact, I don't want to get on the soapbox, but women's health in general has always been on the back burner. So I'm glad that we're actually putting women's health up front and center and how different it is from men's health.
Yeah. Well, and not that it's a bad thing. Women are a lot more complicated. There's a lot more things that
we're still worth it.
Of course. There's a lot more things that can go wrong. There's a lot more potential symptoms, and men just don't really care until there's a major problem. But women are always looking for answers, solutions. They keep pushing, asking. And that's great because they have helped this evolution of the where HRT is now, because now everyone's talking about it. So, which is why we're going to do this, what we think are some of the superficial 7 myths. And then we'll come up with another 7, another 7, and another 7.
Oh yeah. There's way more than 7 myths. And I'm sure after we go through this, if any of you have your own or you've experienced it, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear. So the first myth is, once I find my hormone dose, it should never change.
Usually you have a starting dose and then it sort of changes from there. It's usually never meant to be a one dose and you're on that forever.
Well, I tell patients all the time, because I did have one patient say, oh, I kind of feel like a guinea pig. And I'm like, well, the reason your dose is changing, I mean, it doesn't change every day, but the reason we change your dose every so often is because you're changing, right? Your age is changing, your life is changing, your stress is changing, our environment is changing. So as we're looking at the whole picture, we're not just looking at blood work or, here's your estrogen, progesterone, go on your way, I'll see you in a couple of years, or that's just it. We're looking at how are you sleeping? How are your libido? Did you go through a divorce? Are you dating again? There's so many different nuances to life that affect our cortisol, that affect our adrenal glands, that affect our thyroid, and it can affect the way we respond to our hormones and how we want to change up those doses.
Yeah. So usually, I don't know, we don't usually put anybody on one dose and they're on it forever. Usually you start someone somewhere and then it progresses from there.
Exactly, because we want to optimize. The thing with HRT, of course, we're looking at long-term health, but we also want to optimize, our longevity, our health, avoid chronic disease, and feel really good in the moment.
Yeah. So let's go on to myth number 2.
If my blood work is normal, my hormone dose is perfect.
Myth.
Total myth.
Yeah, because you can't really tell a lot about how a woman's feeling based on her hormonal blood work.
It's just a snapshot of your day if you're doing blood work, right? It's just a snapshot of your life, but it gives you insight. We want to take that objective data and pair it with your symptoms to say, okay, look, your estrogen level might be, at 30. Are you having symptoms of low estrogen?
Right.
Now, if they're having symptoms of low estrogen, but their estradiol level is 230, we might say, okay, well, let's tease this apart a bit. It's just something that you go in tandem. And I do feel like blood work is really great to do, because when you're doing, like, for example, cholesterol, when women go through menopause and that estrogen drops, their LDL cholesterol goes up. I used to be baffled by that in the early 2000s, like, oh, maybe genetics is creeping in when we hit menopause. But no, it was really because when estrogen drops, your LDL cholesterol goes up. So different factors happen. So you want to have that aspect. And what I love with women when we're doing HRT is they're feeling good. And then I'll show them, hey, look, your LDL cholesterol came down and they didn't change anything. Or, oh, look, you reduced your hemoglobin A1C because you were feeling better, you're sleeping better, you're exercising now. So there's, I do feel like the blood work does give some validation.
Yes.
And it can give some people some hope. And it can also tell people, hey, listen, there's some changes we need to make.
Absolutely.
So it's important, but it is not the only thing.
Right. Our rule has always been, or the way we approach things, you treat the patient first, and then you look at blood work, or like you said, in conjunction. But honestly, with HRT especially, so much of it is based on the subjective, on how they feel. And then you look at some numbers because, like I said, those questions. If a woman's estradiol number is on the lower end, but she's feeling fine, okay, great. But if she's still feeling fine, but her number, like you said, is 230, well, we might need to make an adjustment.
Yeah, or if their levels are low, or maybe we raise it from 30 up to 80 and they feel horrible. And, we want to look at that. So it's just a little bit of data. And it's also when you're looking at the data, for example, we might have them on a certain dose because we're working on insulin resistance, we're working on sleep, and then later we might change that dose because we're working more on bone density. We're realizing, this is a factor we want to really tackle a little harder than we did a few years before. So everything's always, so your doses can change. And even if your blood work says, oh, those levels look good, they might not be good for you.
Right.
So myth number 3 is this actually leads to myth number 2 leads to myth number 3, which is HRT should be based only on symptoms alone.
Well, I sort of agree with that a little bit. It should be based on symptoms, yes, because you treat the patient, not the lab test. Lab tests are not real. They're just numbers on a piece of paper. Like you said, they are used as guides to make clinical decision. And you have to decide if that's the right decision to make based on those numbers. But the patient and what they're experiencing and their subjective response is what you should, what I think you should go by first.
Absolutely. Symptoms first. That's why whenever you see a patient, you get in their intake, you ask them all the questions, and then you keep going. And then that blood work or any kind of laboratory findings would be kind of adjunct to help build the picture. Because somebody might be saying, I'm so tired. I feel like I need to raise my estrogen. I'm so tired. Turns out their ferritin's low. I see a lot of women where it runs in families where even if you're not menstruating, their ferritin tends to run low, which ferritin is on one side an inflammatory marker, on another side it's looking at your iron store. So you can have low ferritin, perfect hemoglobin hematocrit, but still have symptoms like an iron deficiency anemia or a secondary iron deficiency anemia. Maybe it's their thyroid. So let's make sure their thyroid's not too high or it's not too low. So there's other aspects that you want to make sure you're kind of going into, and also you're not neglecting and just like focusing on the hormones. There could be something else that we want to look at, like autoimmune components. We might want to run an ANA if things aren't improving, because maybe it's not just about the hormones. So symptoms are important, but I think we want to look at the big picture.
Absolutely.
So myth number 4 is, and this was more back in the 2000s, even like probably the 90s too, is if my hot flashes are gone, my hormones must be perfect.
Yeah, I will say there is quite a bit of a transition on what brought women into the clinic or into the office. Back then, in the early 2000s, it was hot flashes, night sweats, and insomnia. The AC is, because we were in the southwest at the time, so it was blazing hot. Women are miserable. The house is like a meat locker. Everyone else is freezing. Okay, yeah, she's in menopause. So that's an easy problem to solve. Give them a little bit of, Bias or a little estrogen cream. That's an easy problem. Now it seems like women are, they're well aware that that's menopause. And now they're, looking at all the other things that menopause can do to a woman.
Yeah, because I remember when I was a lot younger, in my 30s in 2004, and I'd have patients that would come and see me. Granted, I was in perimenopause, not in menopause, but they would come in and say they're having...
You weren't in perimenopause in your 30s.
That was more of my late 30s. But when I had patients that would come in and sit across from me, they'd talk about their hot flashes and their night sweats, and then their eyes would get kind of bigger as I'm saying, well, what about brain fog? Are you getting headaches? Are you feeling kind of like achy, but you can't really pinpoint which joint it is? Are you feeling moody or forgetful? How's your libido? We talk about vaginal dryness. Are you having pain with intercourse? Do you even want to have intercourse? And they'd be like, that's part of the hormones. I'm like, oh yeah, mental energy, that clarity, that is all part of the hormones, because the hormones affect us entirely, not just our thermostat. So of course the hot flashes and the night sweats, everyone knows, oh, my mom's going through the menopause because they're on hot flashes, but there's so much more to that. So that's where we want to look at, the whole encompassing. And that's what I love about now, here, what is it, 2026, that women are saying, hey, my hormones are related to my mood. My hormones are related to my joint pain. So it's nice to see that, the eclectic mix of symptoms that go with the HRT and the hormones.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. If you took a man's testosterone from, let's say, a good number, 700, 750, down to, andropause numbers where their number is 150, Of course, that man's going to feel quite a bit different in every aspect of his life. How can we think that that would not be possible for a woman? I mean, the ignorance there is sort of laughable that it's taken until this time in 2026 for that realization to be like, hormones have a huge impact how we look and feel. I mean, it just sort of seems obvious.
Yeah, not to mention, our longevity and our health 15, 20 years down the road.
Right.
So, and this is myth number 5. HRT, hormones cause cancer.
Well, that's got a double-edged question to it. Yes and no. Now, uterine cancer is the one that every practitioner is trying to prevent. We don't want... Now, granted, the good thing about uterine cancer is that it's not aggressive. It's a slow-growing, at least in general, if it's hormone induced. So every practitioner is trying to guard against that or protect their patients from that. So that's the one caveat when you say that hormones cause cancer. It could. Okay, that's why the rule is you never give a woman unopposed estrogen. So
if they have a uterus,
they have to have progesterone to offset or to protect against the stimulation of the estrogen. But breast cancer is the one that everyone's really concerned about, and that's just not true.
No, and that's why now it's really nice because they took that black box warning off of HRT that hormones don't cause cancer. But I remember back in the day, people were not happy with me putting women on HRT, and anywhere from, honestly, from 2000, when I started in 2004 to probably even 2016, 17, when things kind of softened up.
Not even that long ago.
That long ago, when there was a little bit more awareness and softening of that HRT picture, like they were like, no, Gabe. They were, even breast specialists especially would be like, oh, that's going to give you cancer. That's going to give you cancer. And it really, like I said, it's number 5. HRT does not give you cancer. Now, like you said, the dosing and how you're approaching it with somebody with a uterus, you want to be careful of not increasing the risk of uterine cancer, but it doesn't, other cancers, no.
Yeah. Now, granted, 13%, I think, is the last number that I heard that women in America are going to develop breast cancer specifically. Something is driving that. I think it's environmental. I think that it is metabolic, right? Insulin, insulin that is a little bit much, hyperinsulinemia or prediabetes or metabolic syndrome. That's where we got to look. That's where we have to sort of use that knowledge to protect women. And then now that plus some hormones, now they're set up for future success.
And then here we are. Myth number 6. More estrogen is always better.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah. To be honest, a couple episodes ago, we were talking about estrogen, and most of the time it is. Women, usually, like I just said a minute ago, how we look and feel, hormones play such a huge role in that. And the unfortunate thing for women is that when they're menstruating, you have such this dynamic, crazy change that happens over a 4-week period of time, and the whole thing starts all over again. You throw in some life stress and some other things. No wonder why it gets all crazy and messed up, and they start having, crazy heavy periods or, a lot of PMS or whatever it might be. Men are a one-trick pony. They don't really have that problem, so they don't run into as many potential complications because there's no process going on there because obviously, they're not bearing children. So, it's quite a bit of a different process. So it's not surprising that women have a lot of problems with that.
Problems with the estrogen being too high?
Well, just from the hormonal fluctuations in general.
Yeah, absolutely. In perimenopause, that estradiol going sky high and then going, rock bottom low, that causes a lot of issues. So I do feel like just over the years when I would have new patients come see me, and then we have, a lot of people writing in, they were very underdosed. Their biased doses were minuscule. I mean, this is just in my clinical experience. I always felt like they needed more estrogen. They needed more estradiol. But at the same time, too much of a good thing isn't always a good thing.
Right.
So if it's like, hey, I'm feeling more tired. Like I had this other patient, a new one that came to me, and she goes, yeah, I wasn't feeling good. So my practitioner just kept raising her my estradiol, and now she's bleeding like crazy and spotting and all over, and she's gained some weight, which we'll go into hormones and weight gain in another podcast. It's not that she needed more, we needed to balance her hormones. So we're looking, like you said, women, we're complicated. We're not the one trick pony. We're complicated, but we're worth it. So we've got our adrenal hormones running around. We got our thyroid hormones running around. We got our estrogen, our progesterone, our testosterone. We have everything that we want. We're like a symphony of hormones, right? We're the orchestra, not the one instrument. So we want to make sure that that's balanced. So instead of saying, here, let's just throw more estrogen at you, we want to look at that whole picture. So that's part of that, that myth number 6, more estrogen is always better. Balance is always better.
We got one more to go.
We got one more to go. Myth number 7 is, I don't feel well, so my hormones must be off.
Well, again, that one could be true, but it could be, as you just alluded to, it could be lots of other factors that is attributing to how they feel on a daily basis. But I just said hormones have a huge impact on how we look and feel. That's a good place to start.
Absolutely. If someone's not feeling well, let's look at your hormones. Whether you're 19 years old or you're 49 years old, let's look at your hormones. Let's look at your HRT. Let's look at that. But there's, like I'd mentioned earlier, there's so many other aspects to look at. We want to look at their adrenal health, their thyroid health, what their stress life is, what their nutrition is, what their macros are, what their lifestyle is like. There's a whole bunch. So that's where it needs to not just be, here, take these hormones, run off home, and you're going to feel like, unicorns and rainbows for the rest of your life. It's not really like that. It's about that balance. Like I know I've had a lot of other, patients, it's so funny. They'll see trainers or nutritionists, and maybe they're not getting the results that they want. And they'll say, oh, it's your hormones. And so they always come back to me and say, they said it's you, it's on my hormones. I'm like, it's a combination of all of it that we want to balance.
Yeah, we've heard that many times over the years. But even still, trying to change your body composition, lose body fat, still hormonally driven. But a lot of times it's not the sex hormones, it's your insulin, it's your cortisol, it's your sleep. So it's not that there's one solution or the other, or one option. There's so many options that does make it extremely challenging. Now, in modern medicine, everything in modern medicine is focused on diagnosing and treating disease. All these problems that women have, and this is part of the reason why they've been marginalized so much, is because all these problems are not really technically looked at as diseases. So if you can't diagnose something, through a blood test or, whatever, then how are you supposed to treat it if you don't know what you're treating? Or there's no medication you can look up somewhere and say, okay, we'll give this drug for this problem. If that doesn't exist, then how do you know what to do? And that's why medicine has been, trained, or physicians have been trained for the last 50 years. Now there's a new crop of physicians like you and I that have learned, partially because we listen to the patient, we're trying to help the patient. And now, of course, there's a lot of other continuing education things where you can learn from other doctors that have already sort of done that. So now you know actually how to help your patient.
Yeah, so you can step back and look at the big picture, where hormones are one very big piece of the puzzle, but there's other pieces of the puzzle that we want to put to for, longevity, for feeling good in the moment, and then also for preventing chronic conditions. So these are only 7 myths that, we were talking about. There are probably 7,000 other myths.
Yeah.
So we'll probably circle back to this, but I would love anybody's comments on what myths you think are out there that people still believe.
Yeah, write them down in the comments below, and then we'll use that as another episode. And we'll keep doing it if there are people keep writing on there, because it's really nice to get them out in the open and talk about them.
All right.
Okay, till next time, I'm Dr. Maki.
And I'm Dr. Valorie.
Take care. Bye-bye.